Good morning. Good morning, Finland.
I was told to say
Moi.
bonjour, moi.
So this is Jane Marengi. I'm Derek, and we were asked to connect with folks for the beginning of the retreat, a retreat day. And thanks everybody for joining us. So let's start with the traditional Pali prayer. Some of you folks know it. We'll just recite it 3 times, the Buddhist traditional opening. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Compassion, non-clinging awareness, wisdom. And let's take a couple moments to arrive at this spot and settle in. A couple of moments in silence together. So welcome. Today we're going to explore practices and ideas about ecology and solidarity, connectedness, and contemplative work, contemplative practices that support this. one of the contemplations that's one of the contemplative tools you can use is art, dance, movement, song, sculpture, painting, poetry. So let's not be too narrow when we think about meditation. Meditation can be, or there are many ways we can explore contemplative work. So I'd like to start maybe in somewhat of an unusual start, but let's start with a poem from Hafiz, which I think is kind of appropriate for beauty and connectedness. This is my favorite in this book of Hafiz poems, renderings by Daniel Ladinsky. Start seeing everything as God, but keep it a secret. Become like the person who is awestruck and nourished, listening to a golden nightingale sing in a beautiful foreign language, while God invisibly nests upon its tongue. Hafiz, who can tell you in this world that when a dog runs up to you, wagging its ecstatic tail, you lean down and whisper in its ear, "Beloved, I'm so glad you are happy to see me. Beloved, I am so glad, so very glad that you have come." Mm-hmm. That's a jumping off point for us to start this morning, because if we're going to explore today the immeasurables, for some of us, loving kindness, Metta, the first immeasurable, friendliness, and joy, mudita, the third immeasurable, shared joy, we often experience with dogs and cats, maybe more so than we do with people.
More easily.
More easily, yeah. And certainly for me, my first teacher of the immeasurables, the person who gave the instruction was my root meditation teacher. But my first teacher of the immeasurables was Princess the dog, a black lab, who was full of joy and compassion and love. And was where I first actually cultivated and noticed the practice of the sympathetic joy you feel. As Hafiz says, when a dog runs up wagging her or his tail, and there's that feeling of unbounded joy. Yeah. So I think we'll start with a little meditation, and then we'll explore some of the ideas that we'll be going through today, and hopefully meeting up with you later by Zoom to discuss. But, I thought we'd start by a general introduction meditation, and I'm dropping this on Jane.
Oh, surprise.
Surprise. It's always good to have surprise. A very good meditation to start with, if we could. And Jane, maybe you could, guys, could we just do the house meditation? As well as, or in whatever way it occurs to you. This is an old meditation from China. And it's just a simple way, and you can do it right now, you can do it out in the world, of feeling what it's like to be open and and watch the mind without grabbing the things that move through the mind.
All right. So, first of all, helps to be comfortable sitting either on the floor, on a chair, whatever works best for you according to your state. And if you're sitting on a cushion, just dropped, really feel yourself anchored on the seat, in whatever seat form you have. And if you are sitting in a chair, that's a start for this.
Mm-hmm.
And then take a few breaths and imagine that you are a house, that your body is a house, and whatever shape that house takes, allow it to show up for you. So you're a house and you're in a clearing, maybe in a valley or on a mountaintop as you feel suits you. And it's a house with the front door, back doors are open, windows may be open, and there's beautiful sunshine. It's warm. Feel yourself as that house receiving the heat of the sun out in the open, spacious surrounding. Maybe have a forest close by. And there's a gentle breeze blowing. So that gentle breeze is blowing in through the windows, in through the open door. And the breeze comes in and blows out gently through the back door, back windows. So have that feeling of incoming, outgoing. The heat of the sun. And the sun heats the surface of the house, but also the air. And so the air comes in, the breeze comes in, gentle, warm. And just take a few breaths with that, as though the breeze is your in breath coming into the house, warmed by the sun, warming the interior. And the out breath is that same breeze going out. And you may start to see, sense that there are thoughts coming up. And if they do, picture them as leaves do in the fall, get blown by the breeze. And those leaves come in through the front, possibly, get swirled around a little in the house, and then go blowing out with the breeze, gently, with ease. And these leaves have different shapes, possibly different colors. And just notice them. Notice them coming in, moving about, the way the breeze blows them. And then watch them gently leave through the windows, through the back door. Get the feeling of this. What does it feel like to simply watch, observe the movement, the shapes, the colors? And again with the breath, bring those leaves, or allow the leaves to come in if they want. With the in-breath and with the out-breath, allow them to move out and move out. And simply observe color, shape, movement, leaf dance in the breeze. Continue to reconnect to the sun, to the warmth. Connect to the house. Attached to them particularly. Leaves aren't necessarily good or bad, desirable, undesirable, they just are. And they come in and they go out. And then gently do that connection of leaves and thoughts. So as the leaves, so the thoughts. Different forms, different colors, different shapes. And just observe. Notice. Very light touch of attention. Warmth, space, slight movement of the in and the out. And come back to your sense of sitting here.
One of the things we wanted to do was provide some tools, like your meditation toolbox, you know. And that's a simple one.
You can be a house anywhere,
Yeah,
waiting in line.
yeah, in the grocery store, exactly. Tools that are hopefully practical and usable. And so, yeah, there's a line actually I read today from Shunryu Suzuki, which kind of connects to the house meditation, where Zen teacher says, what we call I is just a swinging door, which moves when we inhale and moves when we exhale.
There you go.
There you go.
All you need is the sun, the warmth.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's helpful to start there, because if we're going to talk a little bit, we thought we'd talk in the morning talk about the first two of the immeasurables, which are friendliness, warmth, friendliness, loving kindness, and then in the afternoon, and compassion.
Mm.
And then in the afternoon, when I first tried to do loving kindness, I found it really difficult. And as I said, the breakthrough was having a dog show up at the retreat property. That was the dog I've been looking after, and broke away from home and came over to the retreats. I found it really difficult to do loving kindness. It seemed like a big deal to do loving kindness. You know, it seemed like he turned and said, "Well, can you do friendly and warm? Start there." And I thought, okay, friendly and warm I can do. And so that's a really important place to start with. It gets called loving kindness, but the root word metta comes from mitra, which actually is friend. So it's more accurate to say just friendliness. And a really powerful way to practice, which we're coming to you from Canada, from a small town that's mostly forested. And a really good way is to be out in nature with the forest, the plants, and with just a gentle feeling of openness and curiosity, and friendliness towards all this living phenomena. um, and not making it such a big deal, and not necessarily focusing on people to start with.
Yeah, there's just that if it's possible, if you have the experience or can have the experience of being in the forest, just the, as you're saying, the livingness, the song of the birds.
Mm-hmm.
That's there's an aliveness to it that feeds the heart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Without having to do anything.
Yeah. En French, it's in French they say joie de vivre,
right.
Joy of life.
Yeah, it's just the aliveness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Then when we encounter blocks to that, or sometimes the suffering of animals and people, then that it seems almost natural that the next step is compassion. But importantly, in the Buddhist system, the word karuna, which is compassion, uh, actually doesn't have, and I don't know about the Finnish language, it might be good for you folks to discuss the Finnish translations, but compassion in English, aussi en français, in French too, it has a sense of sympathy with suffering.
It's like crying with the other.
Yeah. It's almost supposed to make you sad. And this is not to say you shouldn't be sad or there's a problem with that. No.
That's a natural movement as well.
To feel sadness at suffering. But it's important that in the Buddhist practice, just as the Buddhist practice of metta, which gets called loving kindness, but it more accurately is friendliness and warmth, the Buddhist practice of compassion is more accurately is described as the feeling you have when you alleviate suffering, or when the suffering goes. My teacher, when he introduced it, said, you're really aware when a toothache starts, but if it just goes away on its own, you almost never notice the moment when it goes away, but you notice the moment when it starts. And he said, how much time do you spend noticing the impermanence of suffering? That suffering does go. Now, this, please, I mean, I have to put a qualifier and say this is not to say, that we shouldn't be involved in justice issues or environmental issues and addressing sufferings that need to be stopped and prevented or changed. That's
part of moving it. You need to move it along.
That's the alleviating of suffering. But we should also notice when suffering lets go.
It's a natural thing.
To cultivate attention to the feeling of what it's like when suffering is alleviated. When suffering lets go, it hasn't got its talons, into you. And that's the second practice of the immeasurables. So I thought what we might do is a guided meditation on first and second right now. Just short, a few minutes, a couple minutes, just for the feeling of what it feels like and how they segue, move one into the other. That's all right. And so we'll start there. Again, this is kind of like your. So again, as James said at the beginning, we find a comfortable position. You could be seated in a chair. You don't have to be cross-legged if it's not comfortable. And you can have your hands on your knees, or sometimes there are various different ways the hands are held together if you put them together. And the eyes can be open or closed, or our teacher often recommended half open, half closed. And in this position, recollect you can use your memory here and think of experiences you've had that have been friendly. You felt real strong feeling of friendliness and warmth from others to you, or from a particular being, might be a dog or a cat, it can be a person, or you felt very strong friendliness and warmth, um, feeling of bondedness, connecting, care, um, and that open-heartedness that comes with that friendly openness and care that comes along with warmth. Think of experiences like that, and once you have a feeling for that, imagine that permeating your body, all the cells of your body permeated with friendliness. From the top of the head down to the toes, gentle warmth, openness, and friendliness. Now, let's go through our senses. Imagine friendliness in the eyes and the sense of vision, warmth, openness, and friendliness in the nose and the sense of smell, acceptance and openness. And friendly, warm feeling in the tongue and the mouth and the sense of taste. And friendliness, open, patience, kindness in the hearing, in the ears. And friendly, warm feeling in all the skin, all over the body, sense of contact. Imagine this friendly, warm feeling gently radiates in front of the body. It doesn't matter how far or how close, just the feeling that it radiates forward. And there's a warmth, kindness, and openness permeating the space and the objects. You might even go outside of the walls of the building you're in, permeating plants and animals, and people, and clouds and water, sky and earth. Warm and friendly in the forward direction. Now, kind of like a lighthouse, imagine that this warm, open, accepting feeling moves around your body clockwise. So it moves to the right and radiates the space out to the right, the objects permeating space, plants, animals, objects, with friendly, warm openness. And it radiates behind us. Patience, acceptance, warmth. Flowers and clouds, birds and fish, and people and pets, and trees, and wind and spaces, friendly and warm. And it continues to the left, friendly feeling of openness, connectedness, kindness, permeating whatever space. If it goes further, space, objects, phenomena to the left, plants and animals, people, space, elements, friendly and warm. Now down to the ground, permeating soil, water table, roots, and insects and creatures and space, whatever might be beneath us. Warm, open, friendly feeling. Now space above, friendly, warm feeling permeating the space above. And so this feeling up and down, in all directions, without any particular center, without any particular edge. Friendly, warm, openness. Mm. So I think instead of going through to the compassion practice, we'll stop there. You can see how, at least for me, when this feeling of warmth and friendly feel like you might be connecting the species and the plants and the environment.
We create our own impact and we receive. It's like a giving and receiving.
It's another, in a way, it's a form of breathing. It's another exchange.
And all the senses pick it up.
And it doesn't have, the reason they call it immeasurable is it doesn't have a particular hard edge to it.
There's no way to measure it.
No. Yeah. And it can be helpful to notice these connections and how in some ways some of the technologies we use are, like these things. They can tend to make it feel like we have a self, and that it's stronger and more present and solid, but also then subject to law, not as big or small as somebody else, or it isn't as pretty or strong, or whatever things we come to think about. Open us and don't make us so, they're not necessarily fuel for increasing attachment to the self or clinging to the self. Do you have an observation there?
It brought me back to the beginning of the session where you were talking about it's easier at times with dogs, cats, animals. There isn't that sense of making an eye for a cat or for a dog. It's not there.
Yes.
There's no need for it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's easier in some ways.
There's no judgment.
Yeah, and to feel love back and forth, because I'm maybe not as walled off or defended.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the feelings of the solid self can bring our practicing isolation. It might make that harder to bear. And if you do meditation and think that you're doing something that's completely solitary, and for to make yourself feel better, the self, it might actually not be all that helpful. And in a way, reality as it is, about consciousness and what awareness feels like. And planting seedlings and putting in a garden here. And we were just saying to each other, what's gardening? Is it an inner phenomena or an outer phenomena?
Have one without the other.
So this idea that there's some kind of inner thing that you're doing, and then there's outer stuff you're doing, we need to soften the boundary there, which is why these meditations are sometimes called the unbounded practices, because the tendency to keep a habit of mind to think there's a boundary there when there isn't can exacerbate or worsen uh, unpleasant or difficult mind states that we have. And so these practices are meant to soften that. And one line I was thinking of, which comes from Thompson in his book Waking Dreaming Being, or Waking Dreaming Dying. I think he gets asked the question, what is consciousness? And is it something that's in the brain? And he says consciousness is no more limited to the brain, or is in the brain, than flight is in the wing of the bird. And that's coming back to gardening and meditating. What we're doing is something that should feel part of the totality, and feel, hopefully, it has a tendency to help us feel the connectedness with everything. And
from a previous plant, so you have the movement going, keep going that way to see where was the first seed, where was the first plant. You can't have a plant grow without the soil for the roots, and you can't have the plant grow without the sun and the water. And so what's left? The air moves around. What's not there?
who's gardening?
Ah,
I mean, is it you or
carrots that you ate last year.
Yeah, or is it the sun?
Yeah.
How, I mean, is it you or is it the rain? Is it the rain or is it the entire hydrological cycle of clouds and evaporation and oceans? So it's
Sometimes it's a squirrel that changes a seed from place to place.
you put it there, they
And
dig
it
it up.
shows up somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah. So meditation is like gardening, or like a bird flying, and that's all we're doing. It's shouldn't be. It's a great expression in French. Pas grand chose, which is
Not much. It's not a big thing.
not a big deal. Don't make a big deal out of it. These are tools, hopefully, that you use anyway. You're probably already meditating. It's just we're making some time, just like the squirrel can randomly move the seed and garden, or as human beings, we can do it on purpose. So we're going to practice together on purpose.
See what grows.
That's right. And it's important to see the power of consciousness and coming to be familiar. The Buddha's favorite word, actually, for that gets used and translated as meditation is bhavana. But bhavana, literally in Pali, means to cultivate. He grew up in an agrarian culture, a farming culture, and he used farming metaphors. And gardening, if you like, it means to cultivate, which is to garden. You're drawing attention to it.
And so there you cultivate warmth, you cultivate friendliness, and you cultivate in that is compassion.
Yes, yes. Because naturally, as we cultivate friendliness, we see barriers or blocks where a being can't experience friendliness and warmth.
That you can bathe them and yourself in it, and something might happen. So.
Yeah, sometimes what happens is the instinct to help. You know, you can imagine if you're going out for a walk. I've walked with you folks around Tampere, or you go out into the forest nearby. And if you're walking on the forest and you suddenly hear in Finnish call from the forest, help, help, what's your first instinct? Is it to establish? You hear help, help from the forest, and you're like, okay, what do we do? Let's go do something to help, right?
It's not show me your credit card and then I will think about it.
That's right. Maybe how much money could I make? So when people tell you that humanity's instinct is to exploit or take advantage, just check that for a second. No, it's not. Notice the feeling of wanting to help. And that's the second immeasurable. It's really kind of uncontainable and unstoppable.
It moves before you notice that as you're making the movement.
Yeah.
In it before you realize you're doing.
Right.
And yeah.
And to that end, we just want to speak to something practical that Jane's doing here. And it's just an example, because I think one of the things is about meditation is you're doing something. You're not a bystander. You're not hoping or fearing an outcome. You're saying, I'm going to cultivate this state right now and share it. That's a powerful thing to do. You're an actor. You're not being acted upon. You're saying, okay, let's be part of this great flow of the universe, what Hafiz calls the beloved. You know, what the...
if you're a tool of the beloved, what would you do?
So, do you want to show them what you've been doing? And Jane's been sewing, masks.
These are masks in action.
Yeah, she's got a bunch she's been making. But, and you've seen these kinds of things But Jane's been making them here, and these are special. They have the filtering material, and it was just an instinct you had, and people have heard about it. And Jane didn't want to charge money for them, but people kept wanting to give her money. So she said, all right, you can make a donation to the food bank here, which
The regional food bank.
there's been a huge demand from the food bank in this area, many areas, probably in Finland too. And so people are donating, and there have been several $100s now donated by, I think, almost 1,000.
Over $1,000.
Over $1,000. Wow,
Right.
Canadian. As people have donated money to the food bank, and then they come to the front door and pick up the masks that Jane leaves for them there.
They protect those around them, and they protect the essential workers, and they're like a community effort.
Right. It's doing something. And I'm sure you folks have lots of examples and things you're doing there as well. But really important at times when we feel isolated and maybe afraid and anxious and fear. Fear arises when you feel like you're being acted upon or something.
And you have no agency of your own.
Exactly. Yeah. But funnily enough, that's also a problem here. And I hope you hear this the right way, with hope. It's like hope is something, usually it implies we're hoping for some outcome that we can't influence. So these practices of meditations really don't even get into a dialogue about hope. You're acting in a wholesome and powerful and positive way when you meditate on friendliness. And because as some of you know, one of my favorite quotes is from Maya Dewar, who's a gay rights activist in the United States. She noticed that in the English language, the words reactive and creative have the same letters in them. A really important part of compassion is not just to be reactive, but to be creative.
It's also, it gives a sense of solidarity with folks. Everybody is in this together.
Mm-hmm.
If they didn't come wanting, I couldn't have done anything.
Right.
I would have had a pile of masks sitting there.
Right.
But because people want to be participating, moving, doing, mind, because everyone's isolated, they're creating poetry with them together. There's it's a story that one starts, the next continues, and story creates.
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of ways of feeling community in the isolation of your space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
hey, buddy.
Here's our
master.
Yes.
The meditation master is arriving.
He's our practice.
Yeah. He's our little bundle, a little visiting bundle of loving kindness. Hey, buddy? His name is Tut, and he'll probably be joining us later in the day as well for the next session we get together. Yeah. We're going to end in a minute because I want to keep this to about an hour so it isn't too heavy for you folks to start with. Some people, English may not be the first language. May not be. How are you doing? This is Tut. This is Tut. He likes his head scratched. You gonna say hi? There you are. Say hi. Well, I wanted to end by telling a story. You may have heard. Some of you might have heard. It's a story from Paul Goodman, and he was in Cuernavaca, Mexico, in the late '60s, with a group of activists around a professor there, Ivan Illich, who wrote a book called Deschooling Society that had a big impact on many people. I'm one of them. And Goodman was saying, hey, buddy, Goodman was saying to the activists, he made a challenge to them. And the challenge was, he said, imagine you wake up tomorrow morning and the revolution is over. The world we've been hoping for, we hope for, that we can see, and that we feel should be here. One, caring and kindness, and compassion, justice is here. Goodman said to the group, okay, buddy, imagine that's happened. What do you do tomorrow morning? What's your day look like? That's an important thing to challenge ourselves. We shouldn't allow ourselves to think that capitalism has won. We do. As I said about walking in the forest and hearing a cry for help, you don't respond with a capitalistic tendency. It's not victorious everywhere. Many of the things we do are post-revolutionary. We're living in a post-revolutionary moment right now. This practice, we would be doing this in a post-revolutionary situation. We'd be meditating together, sharing stories, and petting the cat. So this is a post-revolutionary moment. And there are probably lots of them going on in our lives. There's no monetary exchange. This isn't neoliberal. So we should make effort to notice and cultivate attention that things are worse than they are. Not have rose-colored glasses. And
be creative and create more of that.
Yes, yes.
Encourage more of that.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe notice, what are the post-revolutionary moments? There's a question for you. What are they in your life? How much and where? And where can we expand them? And we're going to close now in Pali for you. And we'll do the recitation, which we've emailed out, but just so you can hear the sing-song chant. Because for me, my meditation teacher, this was the only chant he actually sang to us when he opened a class. And it's firmly kind of bonded in my bones to chant together. And then at least you'll hear what it sounds like. And if you want, you can do it, don't have to. Really go in the English. The English is there for meaning, but you can ignore the English if you read it.
It gives a sense of what's being sung.
Yeah.
But the sound is beautiful with the Pali.
Yeah, the sound is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really the meaning. And so we'll do that, and then we'll close for the day, or for the morning. All right. So the loving kindness chant in Pali. Ahang awero homi, api apajo homi, awera hontu, api apaja hontu, aniga hontu, sukyatanam pariharantu. Ahang awero homi, api apajo homi, anigo homi, sukyatanam pariharami. Ahang viya sabe sata vera hontu, happy apaja hontu, aniga hontu, sukhitanam pariharantu. Ahang awero homi, happy apajo homi, anigo homi, sukhitanam pariharami. Ahang viya sabe sata vera hontu, happy apaja hontu, aniga hontu, sukyatanam pariharantu. Sadhu, sadhu. And the closing prayer and Polly for sharing the merit. And it just basically means may all the strength, whatever strength we generate by gathering and meditating together, may it be shared for the lessening of suffering of all beings. Idam te punyakama aswakya motu. Idam te punyakama aswakya motu. Idam te punyakama aswakya motu. And sabe sata sukitahantu. Through the endless storms of birth, illness, old age, and death, may we help all beings to cross the oceans of suffering of the worlds. And by the power of this action, may all our teachers be well and happy. May they abide happily, have long lives, travel safely. May they spread the Dharma as vast as the sky. Sadhu, sadhu. Thanks for gathering with us this morning.
And till later.
Yeah, we'll see you later on for the Zoom session. Okie doke, folks. Moi moi.
Moi moi.